And joining us in the studio now, a man who was there to live through all of the wonderful moments that the 2011 Dallas Mavericks brought to this city. Brian Dameris, color analyst now for the radio crew, but you've been embroiled in this organization for 15 years, 20 years long. You've been a part of it for a very
I started working in the front office in 2002.
Wow. Okay. What
was your official title when you started?
Director of Basketball Development. I handled I was the first person to do analytics in the NBA. As verified by Daryl Morey this past March at the analytics conference. I asked him that question.
Did you get him on camera? Like, did you put him, did you hold your iPhone out and be like, Daryl, record this for me?
No, but I've been saying that for years, but I was like, I think it's true. And I asked him, and he said, yeah, it's true.
How were you the first person to kind of introduce that?
So Moneyball came out, and I was literally flying on the Mavericks team plane, and Mark Cuban walked in the back and handed it to me and said, "This is your new Bible," and we became the first team working with his old professors in Indiana, two of his professors. We were the first team to utilize analytics, which, if compared to what analytics is now, it was rudimentary math, but it was some pretty cool stuff in determining kind of our key thing was like Dirk was always a positive, and we could do plus minus by tweaking out which players were on the court, which weren't. Did it matter which players were on the court? A lot of lineup analysis. We knew always a positive with Dirk. We were trying to basically break even when Dirk was not on the floor. And so what were the ways with the mad scientist Don Nelson, who actually, shockingly, who had been in the league more than I was alive at that point, I was like 31, I think, when I started, was open to it. And it was a fun time.
That's rare because you feel like, the old dogs, it's hard to teach them new tricks in the NBA, in all sports, really.
There was a time, there was a 6-game losing streak. The team was in Miami, and I got a call in March, I think my first year with the team, 03. And it was Don Nelson, like at 8:30 on a Sunday morning, and I didn't even know he had my number. And he's like, okay, these reports you're giving me, what is this stuff? Which means I'm desperate. And I was like, hey, Marquise Daniels is really good as his rookie year, but he's being dragged down by this one player when you play him specifically. The numbers are really good when he's not with that player and really good when he's off, and I can tease it out no matter who else is on the court. And so he stopped playing those two together. Marquise took off for the last 20 years of the game and got like a $30 million contract in the offseason. Has not given me a penny of it. But it was like the first time where I was like, okay, this stuff is really cool. And we didn't have really good centers at the time, so we played without a center. Which he was all up for. We kind of played the Golden State style of basketball before Golden State, and he was open to these new ideas that the numbers were showing were useful.
And all of that eventually leads to the roster that y'all put together that wins a championship in 2011, brings a title to this town for the first time in a dozen years, going back to the Stars title in 99. What was that run like for you to experience, to be a part of? We look back at some of the pictures and videos from that, and there you are right there. I mean, you were, I know you were tight with Dirk, or still to this day are tight with Dirk. What was it like to live through that stretch and see this team that y'all had built and refined and tweaked, and to finally have it make it all work together in this magical run in 11?
Yeah, I think to understand 11, you have to understand the pain before it. And so if you're looking at like San Antonio now, they're going through that pain. It's going to be hard for them to pull out of what happened the other night. But you have to go through those fires in order to win later. And so 11 is not known unless you look at the lens of the 06 pain and being up 2-0 and being up 15 in Game 3 in the third quarter and losing. And then 07 having the best record in the league and then losing in the first round. And Dirk having to accept his MVP in the bowels of the arena. And then 08 just being a flame-out disaster. And 09 his own personal problems. And then, not getting out of the second round, having to change coaches. And so you're talking about a guy who's about to turn 33 in literally a matter of days, maybe towards the end of his prime, and a team of misfits who there was no real second-best player, but everybody accepted their role and excelled at their role, knowing that this is probably the last chance that this crew has to make it work. And it wasn't an easy run. I mean, the offseason move in 2010 was getting Tyson Chandler. That was panned back then. Nobody really saw that as a great move. He was injured a lot. And then you go in and Caron Butler, your second best player, gets hurt on New Year's Day. You're like, okay, not our season again. No more disappointment. They go in the first round against Portland. People were not picking the Mavs to beat Portland, even though the Mavs were the 3 seed. and they blow a 23-point lead, and Brandon Roy goes off in Game 4. And Dirk turns to his team and to himself and says, that's not going to happen again, right? You're looking at it right now in real time of what San Antonio is dealing with. Wemby's got to go in that room and say, not again. Now, the difference is he's never been through it. Dirk had, and he's got the scars. And so everything – then you go to the Lakers and the defending champions, and you're down 16 in the third quarter of Game 1. And Rick Carlisle puts Corey Brewer in, who changes the whole dynamic of the series. Everybody had something to do with it, and it just started gelling and rolling. The Mother's Day Massacre, 15 of 16 for Jason Terry and Peja Stojakovic in Game 4 to sweep. You know, J.J. Barea hurled through the air by Andrew Bynum, right? And Phil Jackson's last game as coach. And then Oklahoma City with 3 future MVPs in Westbrook, Harden, and Durant. And you're down 15 in games 3 and 4 on the road and come back and win that. And then the ultimate villain story of the big three. I mean, tailor-made by Hollywood.
Truly.
To go against, because it was a super team versus not a super team. And so everybody outside of Miami was cheering for the Mavs. And you lose Game 1. You're down 15 in the fourth quarter with 7 minutes to play in Game 2. And then it all changed with what you're showing right now, which is the shadow boxing. And that's when Jason Kidd said, okay, you pissed us off. Let's go do this. And that 22-5 run was when they first thought, oh, we could win this.
It's a moment that Mavs fans will never, ever forget. It's a run that, as people have looked back on it historically now, it's been interesting to watch how 10 years, 12 years, now here we are 15 years down the road, people have looked back and gone, wait, right, they beat them, and then them, and then them. It's one of the all-time runs through a postseason that anybody has ever seen. And I don't remember people talking about it. Now, I wasn't in Dallas at the time. I imagine maybe around here people were more inclined to talk about it in that way. I was in Massachusetts at the time and then North Carolina after that. I don't remember for years afterward people talking about it. And then it seems like in the last couple of years, all of a sudden everybody's had this awakening of like, man, look at what they did in 2011.
Well, part of it was also those careers were still sort of young, right? The Heatles hadn't won a championship.
It was the
yet.
first year.
The Thunder were still relatively young. KD had not won a championship yet. And so the teams that they had to go through really at the time that the Lakers were it. That was
right.
Those were the champs that they had, previous champions that they knocked out there.
Two-time defending champs, yeah.
Right. But now we've got a 15-year sample size to kind of base it off of. It's been on every podcast, and I'm not sure I disagree with it. This was the best run to an NBA championship by any team ever in terms of who you had to go through. I mean, the number of Hall of Famers is staggering.
And the fact that it was Dirk, who's so beloved, got the statue, a guy who, frankly, was booed his first year, the way he played. And then as the last 5 games of the year is really when he started playing well and the cheers happened. And he was ready to go back home after that first year and play, back to Würzburg. And the city embraced him, and he embraced him back, and he didn't want to go anywhere else. And I write about in my article for D Magazine that dropped this morning. There was a meeting in 2010 at Mark Cuban's house on July 1st. He was a free agent for the first time in his career. He didn't have an agent. He went to Mark one-on-one, and they sat in a room, and they were like, basically, they got knocked out in the first round 3 of the 4 years since the championship in 06. He wanted to know from Mark, do you believe in me? And are you going to build this thing so we can compete again? I don't want to do this. My years are going away. And Dirk told me, he said that they cried, they shared, they talked about the good times, they talked about the bad times, and letting Nash go, and all the 06 and some of the good times, and winning the MVP, and they committed to each other, they believed in each other, and that's what started that magical year of everybody wanted it for Dirk. You had the right pieces around with Jason Kidd and Deshaun Stevenson and Jason Terry and Sean Marion, and Rick Carlisle making the right moves, and little J.J. Barea was inserted in the starting lineup in Game 4 of the 11 finals against the big, bad super team. And that's what made it so special. And again, and the gauntlet that you had to go through.
And all of that culminates with Dirk singing "We Are the Champions" on the balcony of
Can
the
we call
American
that
Airlines
Can
Center.
we call that singing?
It was beautiful music to everybody's ears. Here's what's interesting. Two things. One is we're in the locker room after the game, and if you remember in 06, the Baltimore News had printed the parade route after Game 2, and that was the big no-no, right? And Miami used that as bulletin board material. So Mark was very superstitious. There was not going to be any planning externally, internally at all. There was not a ballroom set aside. There was nothing except winning Game 6 because you're up 3-2. All the team knew is they were staying the night no matter what, right? If you win or lose, you're staying the night. We're in the locker room. He turns to me and he says, "Well, what do we do now?" And I had been to the Live nightclub, which is the hottest nightclub in Miami. I think still is, the night before. And I was like, "Well, Live was fun." He's like, "Let's go."
This is Dirk or Mark?
This is Mark.
Okay.
And we literally get into the team bus and drive to the Fontainebleau Hotel and pull up unannounced and basically "We're here." And I'm holding on to Dirk literally like this because I know if I don't get in with him, I am not getting in because it's like the velvet rope of all velvet ropes. And he turns to me and he says, "Are we going to get booed?" And I'm like, "These are all tourists. Don't worry about it."
Yeah, that's right.
And they open the side doors and the place explodes. And that was the $100,000 bottle of champagne. That was all of that. I probably had a good $10,000 worth of it myself. And then a couple of days later, the parade was 4 days later because, again, no planning, right? They had to start from scratch to plan it. This was a Sunday they won. Parade was on a Thursday morning. And it goes right by the arena and ends at the arena. And they were having a little celebration in the arena afterwards for season ticket holders and stuff like that. And there were a bunch of people. So it went by, I don't even know the name of the street, but everybody in the plaza where your old studio was never saw anything in the parade route. But there were thousands of people in there. And we're walking underneath, and I remember going, "Hey, maybe you should go on the balcony because they didn't see y'all." And I'm not taking full credit for this. Maybe that was the plan all along, but then they were like, yeah, let's go. So they kind of impromptu went up to the balcony, and that's kind of how that all happened, which is one of the most iconic images of the entire day.
You know what's crazy is that was 2011. That was right at the ascent of social media. And so your whole trip to Live could have been documented totally differently 10 years later.
Yes. Thankfully, there's a bunch of still photos out there.
There's some photos, but it wasn't live streamed on Twitch, of everybody enjoying $100,000. Bottle was champagne?
Yes. Ace of Spades, I believe it's called. Yeah, that was...
Jeez.
Puts Dom
I don't
to
even
shame.
want to know what the markup was on that, but that's amazing.
Yeah, it was, and then we went to a dive bar, the Loon, if you remember that bar back in the day that used to be on Lemon and McKinney, I think, or Cole. It's not there anymore, but that was the dive bar that Nash and Dirk used to always go to. No windows, real dark. We also used to joke with them all the time, like, "Hey, when we win, we're going to come here, ha ha." And that, again, in the locker room, Mark comes up to me, he's like, "We're going to the Loon tomorrow night, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, right." He's like, "No, seriously." So I call the owner right then at 1 a.m. I'm like, "We're coming, close it down." He's like, "Of course." And so that was the first place that we partied with. And I go in and it's 9 o'clock and people were already there. Mark, I'm ready to get after it, right? And Mark throws me his car keys. He's like, "Get something out of the trunk for me." I'm like, "Oh, come on, man. I'm ready to drink." So I pop the trunk. It's the trophy and wrapped up in a towel. And it had been nowhere except his house at this point. And this is the next day. And he's letting me bring it in, of all people, which is kind of crazy. Because the whole team's there, everybody's there. And I go to the doorman at the Loon, because it was popular. There was a line out the door. And he's like, "Holy smoke." I take a picture of him holding it, and I go, "If I ever have to wait in line, I don't care if I have 20 people with me." He's like, "You're good for life." And he opens the door, and I bring it in, which was a really cool thing for him to let me do that.
The 2011 title, just making everybody's life better for eternity, including this man here, Brian Dameris. Walking down memory lane of 2011, we appreciate it.
Always good to talk to you outside of a bar situation, so that's nice.
Or Hanson's backyard.
We could do that too. It's okay.
Hanson, we're on our way to the patio right now.